Welcome to Living Once Twice, a lifestyle design and personal adventure podcast. My name is Justin. Come with me as I'm here to help you chart your course for creating the fulfilling life you desire. Join me as every Wednesday we'll dive into the inspiring guest stories, remarkable science, and useful strategies to help you create the momentum you need to take action towards designing your dream life. Remember, your dream life is waiting for you. It's time to go for it. You deserve it. Welcome to Living Once Twice. Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. I'm very excited to bring on today's guest, Megan Brown. Megan is a yoga instructor, brand designer, and founder of Well with Noel, as well as an entrepreneur. And Well with Noel is a platform that combines yoga, meditation, organic self-care products, and creative design work to help clients and the wellness community create lifestyles that invite more ease and relaxation into their daily lives, and so much more. Megan, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you, Justin. Thank you for having me. I'm doing good. How are you?
All is well on this side of the screen. I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to get to share more of your journey and get to learn, as the audience will, from just the incredible things that you've been doing. So appreciate you being on.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to dig in and, have this conversation with you. So thank you.
Awesome. Now, before we dive into your story and the great insight that you have to share with our listeners, I always have to give the people context. And so I met Megan through your yoga teaching as I attended one of your classes in quarantine. You had that bomb playlist, some Nipsey Hussle in there. So rest in peace to Nipsey Hussle. And Megan, I've
Yes.
been a fan of just your practice and your uplifting and creative work. So once again, it's going to be an awesome pleasure to get to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was almost a year ago. That's crazy to think. Like, first of all, we've been in quarantine for almost a year, number one. And then it just doesn't feel like I've been teaching virtually for that long. So, yeah, you really put that into perspective for me.
Yeah. In addition to teaching virtually, you've really stepped into your vision for designing your dream life as an entrepreneur, as an instructor, as you just mentioned, and also into the wellness space. So we're going to get into that. Could you start just by taking our listeners back and sharing with them, like, who is Megan Brown? What's your background? Where you're from? And then also, what was your transition into the real world like to get to where you are today?
Oh, it's quite the journey. Where do I start? Okay, first, who am I? I always have such a hard time answering that because I'm just ever evolving. So right now, I'm just a very curious, free spirited woman finding her path in this world that we're in. I have always just been a very creative person. Growing up, I was really into the arts. I used to always paint with my grandmother, and I would be into music and dance class. My grandmother and my mom, particularly, really gave me a lot of opportunity to just be creative and to just try different things and not feel boxed in, even as a child. I've always just had like a really wild imagination. And so just throughout my education, I had a hard time figuring out what to do, what field to study or what I wanted to focus on. So I ended up studying communications because it just seemed like it would be interesting. To this day, I have barely used that degree, but it was just, I don't know. I thought I wanted to go into journalism. I thought I wanted to go into public relations. And so straight out of college, I worked in fashion PR, and it just was not doing it for me at all. Have never really been into the Hollywood scene like that. I've never cared about people that have money and all of these labels. Even though I'm from LA, I have never cared and still don't care about this materialistic thing. And so I just found myself really unfulfilled in that field. A friend of mine from high school was a flight attendant, and I remember just being in the parking lot outside of my job, and I was scrolling on social media, and she posted that her airline was hiring. And at that time, I was like, okay, I need a change of pace. I'm bored out of my mind. Traveling sounds fun. So why not? And so I applied for the flight attendant position, ended up getting hired, and I did that for 5 years. But I think 2 years into that career, I found myself feeling the same way, just feeling really unfulfilled in the work that I was doing. And now that I just have more language behind what it is that I was experiencing, I just didn't feel like I was living my purpose. I didn't feel like I was helping anyone. I didn't feel like I was living up to my highest potential. And so that's where yoga came in. I don't know if you want me to get into all of that now, but that's just a little bit of the path that I went in. It was just me constantly searching for what my purpose is, at least career wise.
We're definitely going to get into the yoga piece, but Megan, there's so much to unpack with what you shared. And I appreciate your journey. And I've just found it so fascinating how you talked about throughout your experience of navigating and figuring out what route you wanted to go, that feeling of being unfulfilled or being bored continued to resonate with you. And you said that you didn't have the language at that time. How did
Mm-hmm.
you acquire that language of understanding like what living in your purpose was, or putting a language to that feeling that continued to resonate or develop in yourself?
I did a lot of reading. So I think like after I graduated college, I just really became a bookworm. And I started reading a lot of self-help books to the point where I just lost count of how many that I have. I would always go to Barnes and Nobles, RIP Barnes and Nobles, by the way. I don't even think they're still around, at least in Southern California, they're not. But I will always go to Barnes and Nobles and I would go straight to the self-help section. And I just started reading more about just your life's purpose and your calling and helping others. And all of these books just have that constant reoccurring theme. And so once I really started to sit with myself and figure out why I was feeling so unfulfilled, that's really what it was. The work that I was doing wasn't helping anyone but myself.
Hmm.
So that's how that started.
Were there any certain books that really connected with you during that time period that you're like, hey, if there's someone else who's going through the same situation where they continue to find themselves unfulfilled and just trying to search for direction out of it, that you would recommend that once again helped you in your journey?
I have so many books to recommend, and I have like a book for every phase or season that I was in. Looking back at that time specifically, there is a poet. Her name is Alex L. And she has a book called Words from a Wanderer. And that was what really guided me in the very early stages of my like self discovery journey. I've read it several times. I had the opportunity to meet her at a book signing, so that was amazing. But now the book that I would recommend, if you want me to get into that now, and we could talk about it again later, is The Great Work of Your Life by Stephen Cope. And I have that whole book highlighted and bookmarked, and I pick it up constantly. So that is a book that I would love to talk more in depth about
Oh, can we? Because
whenever you're
I know
ready.
you've
Oh,
referenced
you?
it in your blog and you've talked
Yeah.
about some concepts from that book that have influenced you. So please do share. What about that book, The Great Work of Your Life by Stephen Cope, has been transformative for you?
Yes. So this was a book that was actually like required reading for my yoga teacher training that I was in. It was a 200-hour program, and this was one of, I think we had 6 books we had to finish before our graduation. And this was one of the first ones I read in one day. And he references the Bhagavad Gita, which is, I can't get too much in depth about that because I'm just not too familiar with the ins and outs of that sacred book, but he mentions the Sanskrit word dharma.
Mhm.
And dharma is really kind of difficult to break down in one conversation. But for the most part, it's our path of righteousness and like our sacred duty while we're here on this earth. What he mentions in this book is when it comes to your purpose, everything must align along the spine of your dharma. And so that really stuck with me just throughout the book is like the decisions that you make, what you're eating, what you're listening to, what you're consuming. It should all be aligned with what you believe your Dharma is. And so he really just breaks it down and talks about how you find your Dharma, how to stay aligned with your Dharma. There's a quote in here: if you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. And that I have like highlighted and underlined. And that just really stuck out to me. This is another quote I wanted to share. Once she found her Dharma, it became the point of radiance around which all of her energies were organized. How she lived, ate, dressed, spoke, moved, thought, all began to move into orbit around the work. But she understood that it was not her power, it was the power of the Dharma. Isn't that
Wow.
powerful?
Wow. No, that
Right?
really is. Did you say that was a part of your yoga teacher training? That was a requirement?
It was required reading. I had never read anything like that, and it just made so much sense.
Wow. I am fascinated by that, and you make me want to read that book. And hearing your story now, it makes a connection how you were just sharing that one part of the book. Everything must align with with your spine. If I got that correct, I hope. And
You're close, yeah.
okay. Could you repeat what that quote was again?
It wasn't really verbatim, but it was like all of your work should align. I forgot how he said it, but along the spine of your Dharma. So your Dharma should be the backbone pretty much behind what you do.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you this then. So going back to you worked in fashion PR, then you became a flight attendant, and then you transitioned into yoga. Were you feeling unfulfilled because going back to that quote, things weren't in alignment with what you then discovered your dharma to be?
I didn't even know what my purpose was
Mhm.
when I was a flight attendant. This Dharma, none of this was even in my vocabulary. I wasn't aware of any of this. I just knew that I loved the job because I was able to travel and experience different cultures and just see other parts of the world. I didn't enjoy the job. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't sitting well with me because I just knew that this was not it. So I began to spiral into a depression because I was like, I can't keep doing this every day, but I don't know what else it is I'm supposed to do. And so I'm frustrated. And that's where yoga came in. I had never even done yoga before, but I was like, let me try this yoga thing and see at the time that's how I looked at it and see if this helps me like feel better at least because I'm miserable in these hotel rooms. Yeah, I had no idea I would be an instructor. No clue. That wasn't even on my agenda of things to accomplish, but I just naturally aligned with that work. So it was supposed to happen.
Oh no, let's continue to talk about your transition into yoga. So you were sharing you were in a hotel room, you decided to do yoga because at that time you just found yourself it sounded like just in a funk. And what did you discover about yoga that was helping you to get out of that funk and that eventually led you to going into becoming a yoga instructor?
At the time, I think one of the first videos, it's so funny because I remember I went on YouTube and I typed in black girl doing yoga. And I was
Mhm.
like, let me just click on the first video I could find of a black girl doing yoga. And it was only a 15-minute video. And I wasn't even mindful of the fact that my breathing had changed. I was just like, oh, I figured it would help me get into shape and maybe help me relax a little bit. I didn't really understand how any of this worked. But I just remember I started looking forward to going to my hotel and practicing. I didn't even have a mat. I would use a hotel bathroom towel and put it on the floor, and I would just do my yoga or go to the gym and do yoga there. And it wasn't until 2018 that I took an actual in person class. And I remember being so nervous because I was like, I've been practicing by myself in my hotel room. So if I'm doing downward facing dog wrong, no one else knows that, right? And there's no wrong way to do any pose. But yeah, it wasn't until 2018, my friend Kirsten, her and I went to high school together in Long Beach, went to Long Beach Poly. She moved to Oakland a year before I did, and she created Black to Yoga. And so that's what really inspired me to try a class because I knew the teacher. And I was like, okay, Kirsten's not going to judge me. It's fine. And so, yeah, that was when I really started to take my practice out of my hotel room and more in person. And Kirsten, I remember one time after class, she was like, you might be up here teaching one day. And I was like, girl, no, not me. I'm going to stay right here in the back. So she's the one who kind of planted that seed for me to eventually become a teacher. So I have so much gratitude for her for that.
Yeah, no, shout out to Kirsten and the whole Black to Yoga crew. And it's amazing
Yes.
what they're doing in the community. with that.
Absolutely. I love them all.
So in your journey to becoming a yoga instructor, because you just also talked about how at first you didn't even see yourself as an instructor, you saw yourself as a student back of the classroom. What helped you to start developing the confidence in seeing yourself as an instructor and developing that process into now a brand and what you've been doing?
I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh because I feel like I still don't always have that confidence, even just throughout teacher training. I
Mhm.
remember being so nervous having to teach people who were in the training with me. I remember being so nervous to have to go up there and teach them how to do a sun A salutation. I was nervous to even hear my voice. Like I wasn't even speaking confidently. It was like, okay, inhale, mountain pose. Like it was just so much uncertainty, but I was still like, okay, we have to do this. Like we're all here supporting each other and we're all nervous. Yeah, even after graduation, I had to audition to get a position at a studio. I was nervous in that audition, you know? So it was just a lot of me having to big myself up and push past that imposter syndrome. Like, you can do this. You know what you're doing. You just have to get the words out and trust that you're going to guide them through this practice. It's been really interesting, like watching my growth. And it's so funny now. It's only been a year, really, a little bit over a year. But now seeing myself and my classmates now teaching for these big brands. And it's like just a year ago, I was so terrified for anyone to hear me even teaching a class, you know, and now I'm on these other Instagram pages teaching strangers. It's insane to look back at. So,
It's remarkable. So props to you as you shared, and I appreciate you just being so open and honest just about your own imposter syndrome and kind of that committee in your head
hmm,
that you had to kind of think of affirmations to work against and to overcome that.
yeah.
So for others out there who are kind of in that same phase where they're trying to overcome whether it's imposter syndrome or just self-doubt is kicking in, are there other affirmations that you would recommend or share with them to use that you found beneficial to continue to like just push forward and pursuing a goal or something that they're working on and they feel really passionate about, but maybe don't see themselves there?
Yeah, I don't know what I was telling myself back then. I think I was kind of just ignoring the committee. I love how you worded that. I was just kind of ignoring it. Now I would say there's a social media friend of mine. We haven't met in person yet, but her name is Les, and she has a platform called Balance Black Girl and a podcast as well. She shared a post and she said, she writes this note and she leaves it on her laptop and it says, "You are so good at this." And she keeps it on her laptop and like on top of her planner and just as a reminder for whatever it is that she's about to do, just reminding herself, you're good at this and you got this. Like, don't listen to the imposter syndrome. So I would share that as words of wisdom now, just telling yourself you're good at this. You know, you're put here in this path because this is what you're supposed to do. So just trust that. Trust that you're here for that reason and to fulfill that purpose. And that's what I've been reminding myself lately with this new path that I'm on with design work and all of that. It's like you're good at it. So just trust that. Trust your work.
I guess continuing with that theme of you trying new things, when it came to this design work and this design space that you're in, how did that evolve? How did you evolve into like this new area in your work?
Oh my gosh. It's so funny because your listeners are probably like, what is she doing? Doing like 5 different jobs at the same time. So the design work was really encouraged by my mentor. Her name is Angie, and her platform is Afro Yoga by Angie. I did her mentorship program, and there was a module where we had to do design stuff for our brand. So we made templates, an example of templates that we would use on our Instagram. And she was like, you're naturally really good at this. Like, you have a really good eye for design and like color pairings and font pairings. And I was like, really? I had no idea. Again, I'm realizing a constant theme in my life. I didn't think I was good at that, you know, or I didn't think to pursue this as something serious. And so she really just encouraged me to try it. And I was able to shadow her because she's also a brand designer. So I was able to shadow her as she was working with her design clients, and I would assist her on some of her projects. And I was like, okay, well, let me leave the nest now and see if I can do this by myself. And that's what I've been doing for the past couple of months. I don't know. It just wasn't a part of the plan. I don't know how. I hope that answers your question because I really this was not a part of the plan either.
I think this is great, Megan. And I appreciate you. And I know you said, like, man, the listeners are probably out there thinking, like, what in the world? But
I know.
you are inspiring and such a reminder that you don't need to fit in this box of
hmm
how society would prescribe things to be. You go to college, you get your degree or whatever, you pick a career and you do your 20 years and then you retire.
hmm
It sounds like you're just following your dharma, your calling, or whatever your heart desires. And I think hopefully it's also led to fulfillment
hmm
versus how you've already been on the path where you shared being in PR or, trying out being a flight attendant and had that feeling of not being fulfilled. Would you say as you've gotten to explore and try different things to your heart desires, has it resonated with being more fulfilling?
Absolutely. And I noticed that recently I was up, I'm usually in bed by 8:30, like happily in bed with my weighted blanket and just ready to knock out. I have been staying up until midnight finishing design work, and I'm completely happy doing it. Maybe not the entire time, but for the majority of the time that I'm working on design, I'm extremely happy. You see my face after yoga classes. Like, I'm so happy to teach y'all and to talk to you after class or to welcome you in. Like, it's really genuine, like genuine excitement to teach and to design. And so the joy I feel now, the only time I really felt that as a flight attendant was when I would be on my layover off of the plane. And I was like, okay, let me figure out how to create a life where I can feel this all the time with my work. Maybe all the time isn't the most realistic, but I can create a life where the majority of the time I'm fulfilled. So that's really what has been keeping me going. And with COVID, I think that really catapulted me into trying these different things because I knew I wasn't going to go back to the flight attendant job. So I'm like, okay, what are we going to do now? Are we going
Mhm.
to take this business seriously now? It's kind of like a now or never mentality that I've had for the past since March. Like, you have to bet on yourself now because you cannot go back to that feeling.
Oh, I love that. I love it. Once again, you are sharing with this audience that this is possible. It's okay if you
Mm-hmm.
have multiple interests or you start to learn that you're evolving into new interests. There's nothing wrong with pursuing it
Yeah.
and just going for it and giving it a try. So, are there any additional tips or advice you would give to someone that feels stuck because they have all these ideas, but they're unsure of how to just decide which one to focus on?
There's a few things I would say. First, invest in yourself, invest in a mentor if you can. Maybe, you set aside some money for however long you need to really invest in a program that you're interested in. But prior to getting a mentor, really start to think about what it is that you're interested in doing. What is it that you're interested in trying? Maybe you have a little bit of curiosity to try something and you just felt maybe you don't have the time to see if it's going to work out. Go ahead and try it and don't really put any expectation on it. When I was making my essential oil rollers, I had no plan of selling them. I was just like, I'm using this for myself because I struggle with anxiety and these essential oils help me. If somebody wants to buy them, that's cool, but that really wasn't the expectation. I would say that lead with curiosity. That's one of my mottos. Don't be scared to try something different and get a mentor. If you can't invest in a mentor right now financially, find some people who are in the field that you're interested in pursuing and connect with them. Send them a DM, send them an email. Hey, I admire what you're doing. Is there any way that we can connect? Just stick your neck out there and see who you could talk to that's in the field that you're interested in. I would say start there.
I love it. Megan, you are dropping some gems, everything from the importance of trusting yourself, the importance of exploring that curiosity that lives inside of your heart, the importance of finding community and a mentor. I appreciate you talking about that because we do live in a interdependent world where none of us can do it by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that you mentioned earlier, and you do talk about this in your blog, but wellness, and you were pretty transparent about therapy. And I was wondering, could you talk about how therapy has been a useful tool in your self-actualizing as you've gone about really just expanding yourself and living to your fullest potential?
Yeah, I am a huge advocate for mental health. I talk about it all the time. It was so difficult for me to share that I was searching for a therapist. I felt like this isn't something that people openly talk about. So I was just like, should I be embarrassed? I don't know if this is okay to talk about, but the process alone can be very daunting. It took me 6 months to find my therapist, and I had given up on the search, and my best friend found her because I was like, I can't do this. And again, that's why it's important to be transparent, at least with one person in your life, about where you need support. And so my best friend knew that I was searching for a therapist because of my struggle with anxiety. I talk about this all the time. And so she took it upon herself to help me. And I'm just so much gratitude for her for doing that. I have a Black woman therapist. And for me, really, it's just someone to listen to what I have to say without any judgment, without any interruptions. And they just offer a different perspective. Most of the time, I've learned that through therapy, I already had the answers. I just needed to hear myself talk through what I was working with. My therapist has, like, she gives me homework and we share book recommendations and all of that. But for the most part, it really has been me just realizing what was already there. I mean, there's so many resources out there. There's a lot of online tools. I think Talkspace is one of the apps that offers free resource for therapy. I just really advocate for therapy. I think it's important for everyone to have a therapist. And I remember saying this, I was talking about therapy on the plane when I was a flight attendant, and a coworker was like, "Oh, you're going to therapy with Song. Like, did something happen?" I was like, "No, nothing has to necessarily happen for you to want to speak to someone." I look at it as just, it's another way for you to take care of yourself. We go to the dentist, we go to the doctor, we go to a therapist. And that's just how I would like to look at it.
Well said, because as you just shared, it's common practice that we do all these other care things. We go to the gym,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Like our
Mm-hmm.
mental health is equally as important as all those other areas. So I appreciate you once again just being so open and sharing how you've used it as a tool and how it's been beneficial to you. And I'm a huge advocate of it. I had my therapist on last season as well. So
Oh,
thank you for
nice.
sharing that. Really appreciate that.
Of course.
Now, there's one really cool thing that you've shared, and I want you to just share more about this story of this billboard. I think it's on 4th and 7th in New York City. Can you talk more about that story, how that came about? If there was any moment that I would think your confidence in seeing yourself as an entrepreneur and really moving forward in your true calling, I would think having a
Right.
billboard in New York City is a great example of that. So can you talk more about how that came to be?
It's so insane. It's a crazy story. I'm a part of a yoga collective, Oakland Omis. Shout out to Oakland Omis. We all met in teacher training. It's 8 of us, 8 Black women. And we scheduled our first photo shoot as a collective in San Francisco. It was like 5 in the morning. We were on the beach. It was freezing cold. We were like, okay, huddle in, let's do a group hug. But our photographer was getting candid photos of us hugging. We had no idea. I do not know how this happened. Somehow this picture, because we all posted the pictures, the candid photos are the best photos in my opinion. They're not staged at all. And so we were all sharing these pictures and like tagging. I don't know how Nike came in. I have no idea. But Nike came across this photo of us hugging, and they said, we are about to start this campaign for called You Can't Stop Us. And it's about Black women in sports and Black women like lifestyle. And they wanted to use our photo. So they did the planning with the photographer and contracts were signed and all of that. We didn't know who was going to be featured in our picture. We thought it was just going to be our picture. We had no idea it was going to be on a billboard until like a couple weeks prior. So we got the email and they said, well, surprise, your picture is being connected with Serena Williams and Venus.
Wow.
We were like, what? Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? And so they showed us the preview of what it would look like, and we were going crazy. Like, a candid photo ended up being selected by Nike for their You Can't Stop This campaign. It was
Hmm.
insane. The billboard was in our contract. We just didn't know where it would be. And so the first one that I saw was the one that you just mentioned in New York. They emailed it to us and I saw the picture. I was like, oh my God, I'm on a billboard. Like, we're on a billboard with Serena and Venus. This is insane. There's one in Paris. They're like everywhere. They're all over the world. So, funny story, my friend in LA works downtown and he always records these billboards that are on the skyscrapers and all this stuff. And I saw our billboard behind him on his story. And I messaged him. I was like, can you please turn around and take a picture of the billboard behind you because I'm on that billboard. It was just crazy. I got to see the billboard when I came home to LA, and it's right next to the Staples Center. When I tell you, like, I could not have even dreamt of something like this because, again, like, it just wasn't planned. So everything that has happened on my path, like, none of it was really planned on my end. So it's just been really crazy watching it all unfold the way that it has. It's been really, really awesome to see.
That's remarkable and well said. Like everything that you have shared, you did not plan, but my goodness, it's
It's
amazing how it's
crazy.
all come together. And I'm sure you can't do anything else but just smile. And like you said, everything happened for a reason and just how it's supposed to. So there's nothing to like force. And
Exactly. Yeah. There's a teacher. I was taking one of her yoga classes, and at the end of it, I forgot what we were talking about, but she told me to always choose the path of least resistance. And I can't remember where that's quoted from. I know it's a famous quote, but that has always stuck with me, to just kind of go more with the flow instead of trying
Mhm.
to force things that aren't meant to work out for you. That's really helped me a lot just in the past year, really just trusting what I haven't seen yet. So, yeah, it's been really cool.
And that's an awesome story there. So, Megan, for the next part of our interview, I have our Each One Teach One segment where I'm just going to ask you a few rapid fire questions that I ask all of our guests. So, are you ready?
Let me sip my tea first. Hold on. Okay, I'm
All right,
ready.
let's get it. Let's get it. All right. So, for the first question is what's one habit that has been transformative for your life?
A habit that has been transformative. Oh my God. I don't have one. Yoga? Is that a habit?
Yoga is a
um,
habit.
no, I feel like that's not right. I don't have one. My habits are all like habits that I need to stop, like drinking so much coffee. I don't have one. Can I like come back to that?
Ooh, okay. How about we'll audible? I'll ask you a different form of that question. What is one
Okay.
belief or behavior that has been transformative in your life?
Hmm. Belief or behavior. Aromatherapy is it's like a practice that has been
Okay.
transformative for my life. Does that count?
Yeah,
I
yes,
have
your habit. Yes.
okay, I'm
tell,
like
tell
I
us more.
have
Tell us more.
I have to make sure that my space is always serene for the most
Mhm.
part. Like right now, I have candles and incense going at the same time. I'm huge on aromatherapy. And so that has really been transformative for just my mental space. Like that really
Mhm.
helps me calm down at the end of the day. Actually, that is a habit. Like when I'm done with whatever I'm doing for the day, I always light my candles, burn my incense, open the windows every day. I knew I had something in me. There we go. That's my habit.
And is there a certain fragrance or do you switch it up?
I love lavender.
Okay.
Anything lavender, I'm all about it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, hopefully, do you offer a lavender as a part of your self-care products? Is there
I
a
do.
yeah.
Yeah. Look at you with the plug. Come on now. I have a tea blend that is lavender, rosebuds, and chamomile, which is a pretty popular one. It's called Zen Blend. That one's really good. And then I have an essential oil roller called Unwind that has lavender in it. That's a really popular one too.
Okay,
Um,
perfect.
yeah, so those are like my two. I love lavender.
Nice. So people can get their Ven blend on, or they can check out other variations of lavender that you offer, which is awesome.
Yes, wellwithnoel.com.
Okay. Now, for the next two questions, we are going to go back in time. All right. So,
Okay.
if your younger self was to meet you today, what would your 20-year-old self be most proud of?
Hmm. My confidence, I would say. Not my physical confidence, but more so just like my confidence in myself to do whatever it is that I want to do. I've always been willing to try different things. And it's just
Mhm.
kind of been like this running joke in my family, like, what job is Megan doing now? Like, where is she at now? But I've always trusted that there's more out there for me if I'm not happy with what I'm doing. I know it kind of sounds like I've just always been searching for this sense of fulfillment in my career, but it's just like I've always had this confidence in like whatever I put my mind to, I can actually do it. I just have to take it serious. And so I think that's something that my younger self would appreciate is just
Mhm.
that confidence piece. Yeah.
Great, great. That's awesome, Megan. Now, our next one, same thing. We're going to keep with going back in time. So, as you look at all of your years of schooling, what is one thing that you didn't learn in school that you believe should be taught?
Financial management, just finances, taxes, how to budget, how to save your money, how to invest. It just wasn't taught. That's stuff that should have been taught in high school. I know once you get into college, maybe you major in business or whatever, but that should be taught at a very early age because I think once you get into your early 20s and you get your first job and you don't know how to manage your finances, you create these habits that follow you into your older years. And it's just more difficult to learn as an older adult, especially if you don't know people who are on top of their finances in your age group. So now, like, I'm learning from people who are into stocks and in portfolios. I still don't know as much as I want to, but I have to like put myself in these conversations now because this is stuff that I didn't learn at a younger age. And I just think that's one of the most important things that we should know.
Yes, that is deep, especially for many of us who Black and brown, our economic
Mhm.
velocity was impacted, so we're kinda
Mhm.
starting off and teaching ourselves as we go, so I totally, totally get where you're coming from on the importance of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the last question for you is, if you had all the resources in the world, money, time, people power, what would be your passion project that you would bring to life in the world?
Ooh, that is a beautiful question. I would do something with kids, like teaching mindfulness to kids, but on a larger scale. So maybe like having my own school that just focuses on mindful breathing techniques and yoga and wellness outside of like an academic school, but just like an actual place for kids to go like after school and they can just go there and unwind and learn these tools to help them because I was just talking about this yesterday with a friend. When kids are acting out, most of the time we're just thinking, oh, they're just bad or their parents didn't raise them right. But there's something else that's happening there. And they don't have the tools to like navigate their feelings. They just get sent to detention or they get suspended or they get sent home. And there's not enough programs out there, or I'm sure there's plenty of programs out there. I know a list of them, but there aren't enough.
Mhm.
And so if I had the money and the resources, I would definitely want to open this organization worldwide, not just in California, but I would want to have it in different locations and travel and work with kids because I have such a passion for kids. So I think that would be one of the first things I would want to do.
Awesome. Watch out, world, for that wellness school coming soon, coming soon.
Listen, we just manifested that and didn't even know it.
All about it. You gotta put it out there for the universe, and it takes care of the rest.
I know.
I guess the last question before I ask you, or the final wrap up, is in this season of your journey, Megan, who or what are you focused on becoming?
Mm. Oh, that is a layered question because there's just so many things that come to mind. But I'm just focused on becoming a good, just a good person. Just a good person, someone who is just here to help other people just live their truest life, to help people just learn how to unpack everything that they want to put out there into the world, help them discover what it is they want to put out there. And just sharing my story with as many people as I can. I feel like I'm very much in this place where I'm still figuring things out, but there's so much that can be learned from what I've already experienced. And so that's really what I feel like I'm becoming, is just someone who is just very open, very vulnerable, and just willing to share like what I have learned so far. There's been a lot of unlearning, a lot of unbecoming that has happened, or undoing. But yeah, it's all been just a part of the journey. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And I'll just ask our final wrap up question. What's next for you, Megan? Where can people go to find you and learn more and just get a taste of your movement and all the great things that you're doing?
Yeah. So what is next for me? I am continuing to build my wellness line. So my organic wellness products. I'm adding a lot of more products to the shop. And yeah, I'm just focusing on that, definitely getting back into teaching. It is going to be virtual. I can't speak on what I'm doing yet because I haven't wrapped it up, but I'm working on something really exciting, bringing that to my platform regarding yoga, meditation, all things wellness. So keep an eye out for that. And you can follow me on all social media at Well with Noel, and my website is wellwithnoel.com.
Excellent. And once again, Megan, I appreciate you. You are just amazing in all of the different things that you do. Folks out there listening, if you're looking for a blueprint of how to find your true calling, find your Dharma, look no further than Megan Brown. Everything from listening to your inner guide, especially in those moments where you feel stuck, unfulfilled, lean into that, what your heart is
Mm-hmm.
telling you, and tap into your curiosity to explore what lives in your heart. And it will continue to lead you to the fulfillment that you once again desire, and being able to build your life and your lifestyle around that. And without question, as Megan touched on a lot, you have to invest in yourself, whether it be your wellness, whether it be your community, investing in yourself, and you'll get the greatest return of all of the fruits of that labor. So follow her,
Mm.
go check out her website. And Megan, once again, I just appreciate you and your time.
Yes, Justin, thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough for this conversation. So proud of you for having this platform and for having these conversations. So thank you. I really enjoyed my time speaking with you.
Excellent. Well, folks, that is it for today's show. I would like to thank you for your presence and tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please show your support by sharing the Living Once Twice podcast on IG, LinkedIn, or wherever, and leaving us a review on iTunes. Reaching out to you all through the time and the space that separates us to say, remember, your dream life is waiting for you. Go for it. You deserve it. Catch you later on Living Once Twice.